Welcome back to the table by the Online Broker Think Tank. I'm Andrew Stevens, your host, and today we have an exciting episode for you. Our special guest today is James Symond, the co-founder of Aussie Home Loans and also the former head of the MFAA. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today that I'm sure you're going to get a ton of value at. We're going to be talking about his experience at Aussie and what he learned from that, how you can apply that to your own business. We're also going to talk a little bit about the future of our industry and where he sees things going, and also announce the great news that him and John are heading back into the industry. You don't want to miss out on this one, so stay tuned and enjoy the show. Take care.
Great to see you. And, you worked with me for some time at Aussie, and we had an amazing crew for 30 years, and you were part of that amazing crew. And you look back, as hopefully most people do, on their time at Aussie, their time with John and time with myself, and I hopefully look back with fondness. And we were tough operators, but hopefully we were fair operators. We always did the right thing, and we ran a true family style business. People talk about that shit, pardon the expression, but they don't really do it. Right? We truly did. We put our heart and soul in it. So it's wonderful to speak to you. And, I've had last 18 months, I've had a break since the merger between Aussie and Lendy. And they didn't need two CEOs. I had an 18-month break for personal reasons and for, non-compete reasons. However, I'm off my leash, and 2023, I'm ready and raring to go. And you'll see a lot more of me for good and for bad.
Which I think is for good. It is interesting because working at Aussie was my first, exposure to the mortgage broking industry. And I had probably very much a corporate mindset walking in, coming out of the banks as such. And it was a bit of a culture shock at first, as in the fact that there was that level of, work hard, play hard, and not in a bad way, but the element of fun that was actually present there, which was special. And then I'm a very open person, so even some of the criticisms I had of Aussie while I was there, it's quite strange now where I'm a shareholder in a mortgage aggregator business, trying to build something that has a great culture and family based, and not too dissimilar to what you did when you were 19, which is just crazy. And then starting to see, the other side of what it is to run a business.
It's tough.
It is.
It's really, really tough. But it's tough not just to run a business on a larger scale like Aussie became. Aussie, in fact, 31 years ago today, Australia Day 1992, I was moving furniture with John and 4 other people in offices in Parramatta, as John's vision. It was John's vision of Aussie, and I was 19 years of age. John said to me, "Can you come and help me for a week or two?" And I just finished my university degree, and I was going to go into real estate and property development. And I thought, oh, well, I'll go and help him for a week or two. A week or two turned into 30 years. So a long time. But it was obviously the most marvelous journey ever. But running and building a business like we did from ground up, bloody hard, but it's still bloody hard just being a straightforward mortgage broker running their own business, whether they have no staff, 3 or 5 staff, 1,000, 2,000 staff like we had. It's still bloody hard because you're responsible for others. You're not just responsible for yourself anymore. You're responsible for going out and killing and then cooking. You're not just turning up for a paycheck. You get all the rewards that go with it, but you get all the challenges and the risks that go with it as well. So it's running a business, and being a business owner is tough. And you know that now, and it's a fine line. It's a fine line. You can be Mr. Nice Guy and give it all away. And you know what? You're better off just going and buying a little ice cream van and selling ice creams. If you want to be just the nice guy to everyone, just go and buy an ice cream van and just go sell ice creams. Everyone will love you. It'll have a limited reach, limited scope for financial reward, but everyone will love you. If you want to actually truly build a business, you also need to develop thicker skin, and you need to, have different facets of the way that you do things.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Somebody somebody once said to me, they said the business you want to work in may be different to the business you want to own. And that was, I guess, a key realization for myself, that when you go from working for somebody, or especially in the corporate world, in the bank, to actually owning something and having that sense of personal responsibility, for the client, for your family, for the employees that work for you, it definitely changes your mindset on how to approach things.
Spot on. Mate, the safety net's removed.
Yes.
It's removed. There's no, and the complaints department is your mirror. So it's a challenge. Anyway, you seem to be on the right track and doing the right things, which I'm very proud to see, and that's why I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to jump ahead to a question. And to be honest, this is probably the one question that I want to sneak in for myself. It's one of the things I've noticed that Aussie did extremely well over a long period of time is, first of all, innovate, but then also who you partnered with. And a lot of your growth did come by recognizing that you needed to partner with somebody. But my question to you is, how do you know who to partner with and who not? Who makes a good partner in business? Because I'm thinking also all these small businesses out there right now, a lot of them on their own and struggling. And I hear from them on a weekly basis where they feel unsupported. They don't know who to reach out to. How do you know who's actually for you and not just for what you're for, or that you can actually trust?
Yeah, there's a few different types of partnerships, there's like shareholder partnerships where that's a different discussion, right? And that's also a different discussion in terms of like-minded shareholders, especially starting a business, to make sure that you don't end up throwing each other over the building, right? So that's a different discussion. From an Aussie point of view, it was more partnerships that we did very well. And really, if you look at Aussie and most mortgage broking businesses, you didn't invent anything in terms of, you didn't make any. You didn't have a factory. You weren't making widgets. We had partnerships. We were, a very professional business that managed partnerships with franchisees, partnerships with brokers, partnerships with lenders, partnerships with other providers. And that's what we did. So we had to be damn good at it. And it doesn't mean that you get it right. So we would try to go top shelf every time. We would try to, if it was a lending product, whether it was Macquarie or CBA, if they had the best, whether it was, I remember many years ago, this was 25 years ago, we even launched home alarms, with Philips. And you think Philips, good brand, Philips home alarms. And we thought, John was the driver of this, and John was always a big innovator. And we ended up selling home alarms with home loans. And it was an absolute disaster. It lasted 3 seconds. The product was not good. And we end up suing Philips, so Philips is like a worldwide zillion-dollar brand. You think that nothing could go wrong, and we did. Customers got their money back. No one was burnt, et cetera, et cetera. But it was an example of A, us giving it a go, an example of B, us having a blue chip partner, in Philips, and then C, it just working out. So, we were a business that managed partnerships, as most mortgage brokers do, on behalf of their customers. And we're a business that basically had gotten a very credible brand in a very short amount of time. And we were very lucky where these other credible brands were very happy to work with us. So we would reach for the top shelf in everyone, in partnerships, in people we hired, the executive team that I had, I couldn't have hired better at the time. The sales leadership at the team that I had at the time, couldn't have hired better at the time. We recruited well, we paid well, we did our best to treat well, as you know. Doesn't mean we didn't drive. We drove hard, real hard, that. And that's how we got into the position we got into. We had a business that was just the #1 mortgage broking brand in the country, and it's quite some stage, we were probably the most profitable mortgage broking brand on the planet. Because everyone's got to make a buck. So we were good at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it is funny how you talk about, might be crossing a line here, but you talk about the success of Aussie and the profitability of Aussie. It's actually a genuine concern of mine looking out into industry right now, where probably around about 10 years ago, there was this race to the bottom of the barrel, as in who could attract the most brokers by offering things like, really low commission splits or flat fee model, etc., which to me actually then damaged the partnership between mortgage brokers and aggregators. There's like this bigger gap opened up between what was head office and what was the small business at the end of the day. And I have to be honest, when I was at Aussie, I was quite critical of the Aussie model because, I was like, well, Aussie takes quite a significant cut here compared to the rest of the market. I've then been able to see since then is it was a partnership where there was a reliance on both parties to benefit each other. So Aussie had to constantly justify the commission split that they took.
I mean, we didn't. There are so many aggregators out there, which is great, right? And a lot of them are my mates and my friends, and I grew up with 30 years, right? Some of them run particularly good businesses, and some of them are just giving it all away, and they don't have any value in their own business. And we always wanted to add value. We knew we had this household brand that did well, and we would spend zillions, 20 million plus a year on advertising, right? It's a lot of money. And to make the phones ring, to create leads, to create customers, to create walk-ins, we tried to make the lives easier for brokers and easier for franchisees, So, and we turned butchers and bakers and candlestick makers into professional mortgage brokers. We did that in the thousands, as you know, throughout the years at Aussie. There are so many people that used to work with me. It was not funny. And but anyway, that's it. So our model was, how many franchise storefronts today do we have that are making $1 million plus a year? I mean, you just keep going. They just keep counting, right? Now, these people, most of them had never written a mortgage in their life, and they don't get paid the 100. They don't get paid the 95. They don't get paid even the 90, but they get just short of that. So they're still up there, but they get, well, in my days, massive support by way of human interaction, by way of leads, phone calls, by way of credibility, by way of training, by way of, an Aussie broker used to be, I'm not sure how it is today, massively supported, great software and all the rest that goes with it, incredible conferences, incredible, and so
conferences best I've ever been to still.
Oh, yeah, so, sure. I mean, we used to put on incredible conferences to add value to our people. And it was all about adding value to our people. We would do nothing, if our brokers or franchisees weren't making money, we were stuffed. We knew that. So they needed to be successful. They needed to be walking in the talk. And in the main, they were exactly that. So, whilst you might go, oh, well, Aussie didn't pay 100 or didn't give it all away. Which other bloody business out there was spending $20 million in advertising a year, was getting the equivalent amount in PR, whether it was John on his fruit box or me doing whatever. So we used to generate it. And so we used to generate so much action for the franchisees and the mortgage brokers that made up for all of that plus more. And that was the model. And you've got to know what your model is. You've got to know what you stand for. If you're just going to start up a new aggregation business or start it and go, I'm just going to give it all away, mate, you won't be profitable. You'll get the shits. And within 3 or 4 years, you'll close it down. Or worse comes to still, you'll go broke, and all the brokers that are relying on you will also go broke.
Well, it's fascinating because you talked about one of the things which instilled a passion for me when I was at Aussie was the new to industry brokers that were coming through, and I still hold that particular program was not only best in industry, was significantly better than anything else that I've ever seen.
Who else is doing it en masse? Sure, they do it, small time or whatever, but we were doing it for decades en masse, to our detriment, by the way, because there's a lot of ex-Aussie brokers out there, a lot of us part of the alumni that we used to train them and train them well and get them to a certain level, and then they'd leave. But what do? You either train them and train them really well, and if you can't hold them, they leave, or you don't train them and don't put the time in them, and they end up being duds, and worse still, they stay. So you've just got to have the catcher's mitt. And for us, a big turning point for the catcher's mitt was launching our retail channel. We did that in the early 2000s, and where people and franchisees had a more serious place to go and had a more serious business to build, you know, and they could really lever the Aussie brand on a strip front, you know. And that program, I mean, the business today, 80% of the business at Aussie even today comes through the storefronts, which, you know, didn't exist until 2003, I think.
It's fascinating, because I know when I was at Aussie, the two most productive areas in the business was Adelaide and Newcastle, which had the most number of stores per population anywhere in Australia. And it was almost like the more stores that were in an area, the more that the brand was promoted, the more business it would actually generate for everyone. And it goes against that mentality of, you see everybody else as a competitor and I want my own space and I don't want to share, where the reality is, like, if you can leverage off a brand like Aussie, it's actually quite significant in its impact on your business.
At Aussie, when did you ever hear us talking about competitors?
It's a really good point. No.
Never, ever. Who cares? Mate, we had like 7% of the mortgage marketplace. You know, mate, when I had 50%, then I'll talk about competitors and be worried. You know, when you only have 6 or 7 or 8%, whatever it was, you know, whilst that's very good, you know, and today they'd be writing a few billion in new loan settlements a month, which is great, and that was always set for that. You know, the competitor is yourself. We never worried about other people being competitors. You never got to mention, like, good luck to them. Some of the key competitors, the most aggressive competitors, were my best mates.
Yeah.
You know, tough luck. Right. You know, go your hardest, because, you know, we will.
It's a different attitude. And this is something I've picked up now, that constant need to actually innovate for yourself. And you actually then start competing against yourself. And I think the worst thing you can do is look to market and try to copy what the market does. And somebody said to me recently, well, why do you give all this stuff away for free? Aren't you afraid that someone will do better than you? I'm like, no one can do what I do, because they don't have the purpose behind what I do.
You know, Andrew, one of my best mates is a real estate agent called John McGrath, and he's based in Sydney, and he's done very well for a long time. And I've known John since I was 19 and he was 23, right? So a long time. And, you know, John used to stand in front of people and literally tell everyone all his secrets.
Yeah.
All right. And everything. And I used to say, John, why? When I was a younger man. And John said, Jamesy, he said, because 99% of the buggers won't get off their ass and do it. He said, they won't do it anyway. Yeah. He said, this game is won, and business success is won. And he said, the first thing, always remember, is to have the discipline to do it. Have the discipline to create action. He said, most people just don't have the discipline, in my opinion. He's spot on.
Yes.
You know, you look at the best mortgage brokers, they're not necessarily the Harvard graduates. I'm sorry, me included, right? John Simon included. All right. But we got the concept of mortgages, of course, and we got the concept of lending, of course. But more importantly, we were disciplined. We were the hardest bloody workers in the team, you know, full stop. You know, we didn't, you know, separate business from pleasure. What we did was a way of life, yes. You know, and that's mortgage broking. It's a way of life. There's no such thing as, oh, no, I can turn off my phone now. If you want work-life balance, wonderful. Wrong industry. Sorry, you're here for the customers, and the customers will call you anytime the customers wish to call you. And if you can control that, you're a better person than what we were, because we didn't know how to do that. You know, we were there for the customers, full stop. So it's, you know, having a disciplined approach in your business is the number one to create a successful business, to be a successful business owner. That's the number one. It's like being like a salesperson. Your number one, sure, it's that discipline and you got to work hard on that. But with a consumer, number one is creating trust, in my opinion. If you can't create trust, you will not ride alone. You know, so, you know, from a business perspective, discipline, you know, of course. from a mortgage broking perspective, dealing with customers in any customer-orientated business, if you can't create trust, go work somewhere else, please, because that's your number one. If you can't create trust, you're stuffed.
It's very true. And I see that with social media, and what's possible in social media right now is there's all these businesses out there trying to fleece money off people to get them to look after their social media, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been lucky enough to connect with some people who are really, really good at it. And none of them would tell you that they know what they're doing. They just say, well, we're just willing to try things that other people aren't willing to try. We're willing to be a part of where this is heading. And what we do is collaborate with other people doing the same thing. We bounce ideas off each other, and none of us are experts, but all of them do very, very well. And I think that same attitude in business, I think it is important to have. Like, you can't just walk in and go, well, as in just expect things to happen if you don't put the discipline in, if you don't actually take action. I just saw them constantly just trying things. And each time they tried something, they learned something and build on it. And then in 4 or 5 years' time, they're so much further ahead than somebody who was sitting there trying to work it all out before they took a step.
You got to give it a go. Totally agree. I mean, you touched on something before, which is so important. And that's what we tried to do at Aussie so many times, is surrounding yourself with great people, and surrounding yourself with great people that you can learn off, you bounce off. Surrounding yourself with negativity is not good, right? People who, and it's everywhere, where people will basically, why am I doing this, or this company's shit, or pardon the expression, they live their life being whingers. That's only going to drag you down. You need to surround yourself in totality in life. I'm talking your partner in life. I'm talking your business partner in life. I'm talking your relatives. I'm talking your friendships. I'm talking your brokers. I'm talking, with people that can help lift you up, not people that can drag you down. Now, sure, people have their down moments. Of course, everyone does. But there are people, and we all know them, who are consistently trying to drag you down, who are consistently whinging, and who are consistently negative. Bye-bye. Don't have them in your life. You'll go nowhere with them. You'll go faster, farther, better with people who will help lift you up. And we always try to do that. And that's the same with me, where people I hide, people who are closest with me, people that, my partner, my wife, my friends, my whatever. I need people who make you feel good, people who are on your path, people who were going to lift you up in. Doesn't mean it's not about financial. It's about everything, spirit. It's about friendship. It's about happiness. It's about fun. It's about all that stuff, and you want to surround yourself with the very best people that you can. And if they're not part of your crew, see ya. Some of the very best friendships you'll ever develop are friendships that people that you'll meet in your 30s and 40s and even 50s, because you start knowing yourself as a person, as a human being, as a business person, so much better than ever.
It's really, really good advice. I wouldn't mind just digging into that a little bit deeper, because one of the things I've observed about yourself is you've got to definitely have a big personality, and you're not always agreeable, which some people don't like. But to be honest, it's not something you've ever promoted. I've just witnessed where those who are close to you, or that have been loyal to you and you're loyal to them, the depth of friendship there and what you would do for somebody is quite deep. And I think I'm starting to understand it right now. Look, my profile has been growing in the industry, and all of a sudden out of the woodworks comes all these people who I've never had a relationship with before, and everybody wants to have a chat about collaborating on something or doing something. And at first it's quite overwhelming, and it like strokes your ego, and you start feeling good and important. Then you just quickly realize that not everybody has the right intentions, and then not everybody does the right thing by people. And it gets to that stage where you really work out, well, who do I want to work with? Who do I actually trust? So my question for you, James, is what's the criteria for you? How do you decide who gets in on that inner circle? Who do you bring around you?
There's no particular formula of what's happened in my lifetime. And I've been very fortunate. Because of the business we built, because of the nature of the business, it's been a hub for incredible friendships, a hub for incredible people to meet. We've, in 30 years, it's like, whether it's been American presidents having dinner with them, whether it's been sitting down in the homes of Australian prime ministers, whether it's been 2 years ago, I'm here at the Gold Coast and I get an invitation with my wife to go and have afternoon tea with King Charles.
Yes, I saw the picture. Yes.
Yeah, I get picked up in a private plane. I'm sorry to say this because it sounds like a wanker, but private plane. Next thing you know, my wife and I are spending an hour with King Charles with 12 other people having afternoon tea with him. And my wife's making him a new cup of tea. And I'm thinking to myself, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And
pinch yourself a moment.
I don't know him from a bar of soap, but just funny things. And in the last 30 years, whether it's rock stars or Jay-Z and so I've had them. And so one thing you come to conclusion with meeting so many interesting people. And, one of my best friends who was the MC at my wedding was the federal treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, and, so we have access at all the different, it's lovely. It's amazing. It's incredible. We're Lebanese immigrant family that used to run fruit shops. Yeah. Anyway, put that aside. I realized that you realize really quickly when someone's a good egg, a good person, someone is on a pathway in life. Doesn't mean work or financial or business, but just a pathway in life that you want to be part of as well. That's also a bit of fun. I always look for people. And, there are some people in life who go, I've got to be the smartest person in the room. I want to surround myself with, idiots. I was the guy that says, no, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, number one. Okay. I want everyone, I want to sit there and learn. I want everyone else to be smarter than me. I want everyone that I employ to be smarter than me. I want my friends to be more clever and more witty and more fun and more, gregarious than me. I don't want to be that person, and it's interesting. If you do every single check on me says that I'm an introvert and that I've had to grow to be more of an extrovert. And it's an extraordinary thing. And I was very privileged. I went to pay per play courses, and I went to Harvard Business School. I went to Columbia Business School, and I did all that sort of stuff because I didn't go to university, right? I went straight from school and I did a real estate course at TAFE. And then I went straight to Aussie. That was it, because I was going to be a property developer like my grandfather, or a real estate agent or something like that. Next thing you know, I'm a mortgage broker. And I ended up having these amazing opportunities that John provided for me of going to Columbia Business School for a few months, going to Harvard Business School on campus for a few months in my 20s and 30s, and really trying to round out an education. Once again, you're meeting some amazing people, and those sort of courses. It's incredible. And you're sitting there going, how am I here? Well, no, the business is writing out the check. That's why I'm here. But and so you come to the age of 50, which I am today, and you look back. And I've been a very sick boy at times in the last few years, let me tell you. And you have a lot of come to Jesus moments, and you just want to surround yourself with good people. Forget the days of kissing butt or befriending people because you think you have to. Fortunately, we made a couple of dollars. Fortunately, we forged a good reputation. Fortunately, we did okay in the scheme of things, and we don't have to do that sort of stuff. But by geez, there is no one in my life today. We had at Aussie a no dickhead policy, and I had it for 30 years. If you're a dickhead, pee off. All right. And I don't know whether you ever heard of it, but certainly at senior manager, we always knew, we sat around it. There's no dickhead policy. I have that in my life now. I'm a good guy. I do the right thing. I've always done the right thing. Sure, I've been hard and I go for it. But, I don't need people around that are dickheads. These are real simple things, right? You wonder how John and I built, because John talks the same way as you wonder how we built the business we built when we have such simple attitudes. We're not very sophisticated, are we?
There's the simple things, like everything you talk about right now, link right back to the start of that conversation, where we're talking about just not surrounding yourself with negativity or people who are going to pull you down, and stop kissing butts. It took me a lot longer to learn. I used to be way too respectful of authority. I know that sounds bad, but I quickly discovered that there was other people in the room who didn't know what they were talking about, and that I was allowed to have a voice in that room if I genuinely believed in what I stood for. And I've found it in the last couple of years, by sticking with my guns around what I genuinely believed was the right thing to do and what would work, I ended up attracting people to me who also shared those values, and that created opportunity. And I see over your 50 years, that's kind of what you've done. You've stuck to your guns. You know who you are. You know what your values are. And slowly, that's just filtered out more and more people who don't fit that, and attracted more and more people.
But even with me, with authority, I respect respectful authority. Okay, I respect respectful authority. Number one, that I believe they know what they're doing. You know, if that's their area of expertise and they know what they're doing, I'm not going to question, you know, a landscaper who's they've been in business for 30 odd years, and if they're very good at what they're doing, but I'll question someone who's just trying to give it a go or tell me what to do because, yeah, I won't. Good luck. You know, good luck. Doesn't work with us. And, you know, over the years, you know, we tried to do our best to lead the way for the industry. It sounds a little arrogant. I'm sorry if it does, but we tried to do our very best. And I used to go every year to mortgage banking conferences year after year into Canada, into the States, and take teams with me. It was wonderful. You know, it was wonderful. And, you know, we just tried to, there aren't many new ideas or new ideas. A lot of things are rebuilt ideas or in fact copied, and that's okay. But, you know, as long as it's not done in your hometown. So, you know, we used to go to other countries, Canada, the States, London, and try to work out what they're doing. And, you know, what can we always go away, and John used to come say, we need 3 good ideas, 1 perler, and just 3 ideas, just 3. So we can come back and implement 3 ideas. And that's what we did. You know, you'd go, some of these trips were expensive, but they, you know, you felt like the industry was a really large industry, which it is in Australia now, but 25 years ago, it wasn't. And we used to come back and we used to try to do different things. And sometimes we'd fail, you know, sometimes massively. You know, I remember John had the idea when we launched retail stores. I'd done a lot of homework and I had a good team around me that gave me some good advice, some real good people that I'll always thank. And we launched franchise strip fronts, as you know, which was what we have today. And John wasn't convinced. John said, listen, why don't we own all the stores as proprietary stores? I wasn't convinced because I wanted the skin in the game. I wanted to give people the opportunity of building their business. I wanted to build it quicker, faster, better, more financially efficient by using franchisee money, but then giving away a lot more profit in doing so. John said, well, why don't we just own them all? Typical. John has big thoughts and just said, fine. So I got to open up 2 franchise stores, you know, one in Queensland, and which was Georgie Bergstrom, and one in, I think they might have been both in Queensland, Tagum and Sunnybank. I think they're both in Queensland, actually, and the franchise capital of Australia. And they existed for 20 odd years. You know, those 2 guys did a magnificent job. John opened up 12 Westfield shopping centre stores that cost a bomb of them. I got to open up 2. He got to open up 12. Oh, well, John's the boss. Within 18 months, I get the call, close them down. And it cost us millions and millions and millions to close them down. And it was a nice idea to own the stores. And gutsy John was typically gutsy in saying, let's just do it. Cost us a fortune. But I couldn't get it. Didn't have the skin in the game. People, you know, the store managers, et cetera, and I called them stores, not branches, because I hated the word branch. So I always just called them stores, like Apple Store. It's a much more newer term, friendlier term. Anyway, we ended up closing them all down. It cost us millions and millions of dollars. It was just an example of us trying, failing, but then we had a backup plan, which was the franchise stores. And now we have, I think, 200, now Aussie has 240 stores and still growing. And they're great businesses when you get them right. Full stop.
It's good. Yeah, I like it. It's quite inspirational that you had an idea and you backed yourself. I said, I wouldn't want to argue with John. You can.
Well, it was John. John's like my dad, right? I love him. And we have a very special relationship. And you know, when you start don't forget, John had nothing when he started. John was a wealthy dude that lost everything. You know, one minute my uncle's driving a white convertible Rolls Royce, living in an acreage in Pymble. Telegraph Road, and the next minute he's broke. Didn't go bankrupt. The guy, made sure he kept himself nose clean and paid everyone. Blah blah blah. But he started Aussie, and don't forget, for the first 5 years of Aussie, we made nothing. We bled through the nose. It's an annuity business. You're building up this annuity book, as all mortgage brokers know, and so it's hard, Jacko, and you've got to stay disciplined and focused and positive and have fun, whilst you're still seeing every year, oh shit, I'm not making any money, but it's going to come. It eventually came, as we all know, and all mortgage broking businesses are the same. And so John, I started on a playing field, even though I was 19, where he had nothing. We traveled 6 months after we started. I think we went to San Francisco, and we stayed at the Chapel Hill Motel, which was like in a King's Cross district. And we shared a room because we couldn't afford to get our own rooms. We went over economy. Now, John and I don't fit in economy, but put that aside, we went over economy because we were so determined to learn what this business was all about. Dinner was McDonald's. I had no money. There was no money. Dad gave us a bit of a hand, and we had a couple of people give us a little bit of a hand. But so, yeah, my relationship with John was one where he certainly knows where I come from. He's my godfather, and I know where he comes from. And, when you start on that platform, it's a nice thing. So, but with John, like anyone, you've got to earn credibility. And fortunately, over the years, I earned credibility.
I think the strength of that partnership over that many years is incredible. Like one of some of the directors of the business that I'm involved in, one of the things that gives me the most sense of, I guess, confidence in what's actually happening is they've been in partnership for 40 years across multiple businesses. And you sit in a room with them and you see the banter between them and the way that they know each other and the way that they think. You can't build that in a couple of weeks or a year or two. It's phenomenal what both you and John have achieved over so long. And let me just point out, because I've been wanting to say this for a while, everyone I talk to in the industry has a connection back to Aussie. So when you mentioned that you really wanted to, I guess, build the industry, as much as some of us left at times, and I was one of them.
It's okay.
As in you take it with you. And as you said, when you look back, you realize it wasn't as bad as perhaps what you thought, or different things change. But as in just the legacy, first of all, of the staff that's out there building, but then just a number of brokers too. And I still think there's a significant gap in our industry, or a great pathway in for mortgage brokers into our industry. It's something that which we need to fix.
And what's going to happen, Andrew? You look at now, right? Markets changed. Markets changed today versus 12 months ago versus 6 months ago. And we've seen these times before. But there are a lot of mortgage brokers who have not seen these times before. And they're probably shitting their pants and going, what, the doorbell's not ringing. Customers are just complaining. They're coming off fixed rates. I can't do too much about them. They can, but can't do too much about it. And it is what it is. And I think that you're going to see now over the next 12 and 18 months, a lot of mortgage brokers leave the industry. So as much as they joined the industry over the last 5 years, in particular, as the industry just kept heating up, you'll see a number of them leave. And so there's going to need to be businesses out there like Aussie was in particular. I don't know how they are today, who are these industries who recruit a ton of brokers in a quality way, not just churn and burn, in a quality way. I wish I had the retail channel. I wish I had some further knowledge 20 years ago. I wish I had just some better smarts of maturity to keep and retain a truckload of brokers just by doing different things, but it didn't. But I'm still proud many of them went on to do big and better things. And you can only be proud of that for themselves, their families, their friends. And, we really started to hit our straps, I think 10 years after we started. I was there for the best part of 30 years building the business. And probably the first 10 years, look, we had our L plates on. For the next 5 years, we had our P plates on. And the next 15, we were in the F1 car racing around the track. Thank you very much.
And look, if you look back then, nobody knew what to do in the mortgage broking industry. It was right at the start. And look, one of the challenges I see at the moment is these brokers have been in the industry for 20 odd years and they don't know how to retire. They don't know how to
Mate,
exit.
spot on.
And
Spot on. That's going to be that's a big thing now. And that's going to be a big thing over the next 5 years is there's a lot of older generation mortgage brokers who actually have had enough, who actually would like to either sell their business, pass it on, blah, blah, blah. And they've got a good asset too, a really good asset. How do they do it? You know, with a model, and I'm not touting Aussie here, but with an Aussie model, it makes it a little easier to take a branded business like Aussie and sell it to another Aussie operator. Okay. And that goes with any business, Mortgage Choice. It goes with the, you know, Sammy White's Loan Market. It goes with, you know, a number of these retail branded business. It should be easier to sell your business, you know, within the group. When it's just ABC mortgages externally, who are, you know, with an aggregator, it's probably a little harder. Still can be done, but that's a big opportunity out there if you want to get into the business to be the middle person of helping sell these businesses, or even sell the books in some cases. It's a lot harder to sell the book these days. Big opportunity out there.
What's your advice to, you know, and I think the average mortgage broker is 55, Caucasian, living on the outskirts of Melbourne, been in the business for about 12, 13 years, obviously approaching retirement. What's your advice to them right now? What should they be looking at or considering?
First of all, what's retirement? I don't understand what retirement is, right? You know, I've got an uncle who's 75 years of age and he's ready and raring to do something, right? I've got a father who's 80 this year and, you know, he's doing another development this year. I mean, what's retirement, number one? You know, I had a conversation with an Aussie senior Aussie franchisee the other day who was with me he's been, you know, for 20 odd years and he wants to retire. His family's in the business, et cetera, et cetera. I said, what does retire mean? And he says, oh, well, I said, mate, why don't you scale down, scale back, keep your interest, keep your income, keep your cash flow. He wants to travel the world. I said, the cash flow is a nice thing to have. Let me tell you, when you don't have it for a while, it's not fun. I said, so what is retirement? What, you just go and sit in an old age home and rock back and forth? So understand what retirement is first. And I think that when you get to the crux of it with people, retirement is really just having, instead of working 100% of the time, 90% of the time, 80% of the time, retirement's, look, I'll go in 10% of the time even. Have a finger in the business, have an interest, keep your brain conditioned, keep your income oiled, keep your customers happy, keep your team led. So I think there's got to be some more serious discussions of people understanding, well, what do I mean by retirement? Because when people are working their bones off, sometimes they just get the shits and go, listen, I just don't want to keep doing this. But if you said to them, you're working, you know, you're 12 cylinders and you're working 12 cylinders, but if you're going to work 3, would you be happy with that? That 9 out of 10 would probably go okay if they still keep retaining a quality income. So I think that having a mentor, having business partners, having people within the industry, as we discussed before, surrounding yourself with the right people that you can have these discussions is a really good place to start to get your head right. Is it just a complete sale of the business you want to retire, or alternatively to go to another business? Well, that's something. You know, it depends what business you've really built. If you've just built a one-man band and you're Michael Jordan, what do you got to sell? If you've built a business like a shop front with 2, 3, 4, 5 people, you know, and you don't have to be there all the time and you can go on holidays and whatever, well, you've built something. So you've got to look at what you've built, you know, begin with the end in mind. We've all heard that. Really important, simple stuff.
I couldn't agree more. And the unfortunate thing that I'm seeing is people reach out to me and say, hey, Andrew, I want an exit strategy from my business. I'm like, yeah, happy to help. And I say, so, you know, we've got 2-3 years. And they say, oh, I've got 6 weeks or I've got 3 months. And it's unfortunately what typically happens is people of a particular age group, you know, life starts to change and things start to slow down and people get sick and things start happening where they actually don't have a choice on how they retire or they don't have options. And I think creating options is the key to a business that says, well, maybe I do want to work in this business full time, but I still want to have options later on that if I do want to change. Like Stephen Harris, who I work with very closely, he tells everyone he's retired, but he's the general manager of Nectar Group because he had his own Nectar franchise. He grew it. He got bored. He decided that that's not what he wanted to do anymore. So he put in a manager, still, you know, runs an income. Sure, it doesn't do what he would have done with it. And he decided that his retirement is he wants to be the general manager of Nectar Mortgages. To your point, retirement isn't sitting on the beach, sipping some, yeah, exactly.
And by the way, if that's your vision of retirement, wonderful. And if you've made enough money that you can do that, and you can sit in bloody Saint Tropez and on a lovely yacht, that's fantastic. But not many of us can do that, And they've just got to consider, what are they going to sell? What do they have? I've had so many people speak to me about this stuff, and first thing I say, well, what are you selling? Well, what do you mean? And I go, okay, are you selling a book or a business? I'm selling my business. I said, okay, talk me through your business. Oh, well, there's myself and my wife helps me with admin. Well, you're selling a book. No, I'm selling a business. I said, within 5 minutes, okay, I'm selling a book. All right, because they don't understand. I mean, mortgage broking is a wonderful business and you can create some great cash flow. And the good news is that if you want to be Michael Jordan and have your wife or husband do the administration and your family and run a lean, mean business and make yourself 100, 200, 300 grand a year for 10, 20 years, it's wonderful, fantastic. And have a book left that you may or may not be able to sell, wonderful. But it's also a business in which if you truly want to grow it, you need to hire bodies. You need to hire people. If you don't have a PA, you are one, So these are things that you need to, if you want to build a business, you need to build a business. That starts with people. People talking about software makes the business. It's all out of shit. This business is still a feet on the street business. All right. The more people you get out there and eyeball the customers, the better. What do they say? Sales is a contact sport. And the more you contact, the better you go. And it's exactly it. I hear businesses and, oh, look at our software. Who gives a shit? Software doesn't sell loans. Some of the best mortgage brokers out there, you give them a pen and a pad and sit them on a bus stop. They create trust, love, interest, education better than anyone. Some of these the top brokers at Aussie that I trained and hired, ex-customs agents, ex-policemen, not ex-bank managers or big shots. And so software, people talk about, oh, look at the one software. Who gives a shit? At the end of the day, software doesn't drive sales. Software is a ticket to the ball game. You need good software. Absolutely. I mean, it's too technically inefficient not to have it. You just can't do it, especially going through 2,000 loan products, et cetera, is what's best for the customer. But it's a tool to help the broker, not replacing the broker. And that's why all these online businesses are just going so bloody hard, because there's no benefit to the consumer. If a consumer can get a mortgage broker, a friendly, happy face in front of their face, and they're getting the same product, same rate, same everything, but 10 times better service, 10 times better face-to-face interaction, 10 times better trust, 10 times everything, right? This is still a face-to-face business. There isn't a singular, true, end-to-end mortgage broking business that's digital only that has been successful in Australia of any size. True. I'm not talking about calling up the contact center, So this whole digital thing, mortgage brokers get all worried about digital. Maybe in 10 years, I can't see the future, but within the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, be the best human interactive mortgage broker you can be, and you will kill it. Make sure you develop trust. Make sure you educate the customer and yourself. Make sure you have the right relationships and you do it well. Make sure you surround yourself with the very best people, which we always did. And that also comes to working with some of the very best businesses. There are some amazing aggregators out there these days. What may start have been like a, cowboy outfit, perhaps like Aussie, truly are professional, jets out there today that do a bloody good job. The industry has grown up. People leave school today and they say, I'd like to be one of these mortgage brokers. 30 years ago, well, good luck. 20 years ago, good luck. Today it's become a career, which has been brilliant. And I'm so proud if John and I have been any part of developing that.
So some of the stuff that you've just been talking about rings so true. And I've been lucky enough to meet and spend time with some of the best mortgage brokers in our industry. And when you ask them about what made them successful, no one names an aggregator or a piece of software.
No.
They talk about the people they surround themselves with, the opportunities and the doors that were opened because they had the right people around them, and who they partnered with. It's not what you think. So it's all
you
people
need competent software. You need competent software that does the job. All right. But like I say, it's a ticket to the ball game. Everyone's got software. Everyone touts it as being, well, this is the best. You've got a software that you get used to, that's reliable, that's great for the customer, and that does its job. And a physical mortgage broker is what makes the difference. You know, if you don't like dealing with humans, if you don't like to be interactive, if you don't like putting a smile in your face, you're in the wrong industry. If you're a grumpy bum, be a postman.
It's something I've seen that social media has done, is it actually only enhances what you have. So where they used to sometimes be able to hide behind a business brand, or hide behind like one of the major banks or something like that, and be a grumpy little soul. You're just not going to get cut through out there now, because people want to deal with real, authentic, genuine, approachable people. And they want to know who is behind that brand. And do I like you? One of the directors of the business I'm in is one of the founders of Ando, which is one of the world's fastest growing digital insurance companies. And so they do a great job in this digital space. But he will tell you, the moment, it doesn't matter how good your digital experience is, the moment you have to have a handoff to a human, and that human experience isn't top notch, you'll lose that customer 100% of the time. And it just, and people still want that human interaction where someone actually tells them everything's going to be okay, confirms their, they can, what they might be thinking is right or not right. And that's why I'm a big believer that the future for our industry is broker plus technology beats technology every single time.
Do you remember, Andrew, the values that we had at Aussie? It's okay if you don't, that's fine. It's been a while. But there are 3 words we had as the values that John and I had for Aussie. And they were values in which we liked, in which we came up with when you deal with a customer, a peer, a broker, a franchisee, a partner. And the values were safe, smart, and special. Okay. And if the customer, broker, peer, relationship, partnership, or whatever it is, if they didn't feel safe in dealing with you, they wouldn't deal with you. If you didn't help them, make them feel smart in, like, especially a customer's case, through education and, help them drive the process, they wouldn't go with you. And ultimately, if you didn't make them feel special, why would they go with you? Why they can go with the next person? We always had, so safe, smart, and special were the values that we held very dear at Aussie for a long time. I'm not sure what they are today, but they were 3 words that it was really important for us to get through to everyone at the time, to make sure that customers and everyone felt that way. If an employee, I hate using the word, a team member, call it, a team member that works with you. And notice I never say works for me. I never have. If someone works with me, this is not bloody Stalin, and this is simple as that. And if they don't feel safe in their employment, and for example, you left on your own accord for your own reasons, but there wouldn't have ever been a time where you didn't feel safe in your employment, right? And I hope there wouldn't have been,
You're quite right.
And it's really important words. And I think as a business person, and even as a person, whether you have a company or not, you've got to have your inherent values. And for example, my own inherent value, simply, James Simon, inherent value is simply to do the right thing. That's it. I say to my wife, I say to my dad, my mum, my daughter, and I say to, just do the right thing. And whilst I haven't been in the industry the last 18 months, I've been, I've got some property developments, and I've got a couple of businesses in New York and restaurants and bits and pieces, just, having some fun and making a couple of bucks here and there and building a home, right? I'm building a home in Sydney, which is worst timing in the world, worst commercial decision ever. But put that aside, it is what it is. But same thing when I sit down with the builder, just my personal value is just simply to do the right thing. And everyone knows what the right thing is, right? And so I think that some of these key things that Aussie had, and if you look back, Andrew, and look back at some of the meetings you went to, the people you met, the conferences you were into, they had real simple messages that a lot of it led to do the right thing, right? Doesn't mean we weren't hard, we weren't tough, we weren't driven, we weren't, all that sort of stuff. But, we were hopefully fair, and hopefully trusted, and hopefully were good, and hopefully did the right thing. And I think that John's own brand in a wider community, represents that. So, we were built, from day one. We were built for the consumer in mind. Our first tagline was "Making your dream come true." Not very good, until we changed it to "We'll save you." Throughout the way, we changed the tagline a couple of times, and we went back to "We'll save you," because it's what the consumers knew, and it's what people knew, and to capitalize on the goodwill of that. But the "We'll save you" was also going back to just trying to do the right thing. And we knew if we did enough of the right thing and we had our model right, that eventually we'd make a buck. I don't want to go back to making $1, but it's commercial reality. It's why you're in business. But, we didn't begin with you've got to make truckloads from day one here. We knew we had to make $1, but we knew we had to satisfy a lot of criteria first and hang on. We had to have business partners, investors, and people at the time that were willing to hang on with us for longer than they thought too, because it's an annuity business.
It's probably the one thing that I remember most about Aussie was just the clarity of vision. As in, there was no mistaking who Aussie was, what the identity was, what they were about, what the values were. And it was consistent. I actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine who also worked at Aussie prior to having a chat with you. And he said, he goes, I wonder if James will still be saying exactly the same things that he was saying in every QBF. And to be honest, and you kind of have, because if you look at it, Aussie is your values and John's values expressed.
That's it. And it's reiterating them, and it's reiterating them, and it's reiterating them, and it's reiterating them, and reiterating them. And that's that. And it's like, it's like we're fortunate. We know people like Jerry Harvey and Harvey Norman and some of those old guys, and Jack Cowan, Hungry Jacks, and some of these old multi-billionaire business people who are self-made. They are exactly the same. They talk simply, they talk the same. Harry Triggerboff, I'm in a building here in Main Beach on the Gold Coast. He's got the top 2 floors of where I'm at, and I see Harry. He comes virtually every weekend. Same Harry, same questions, same this, same that. Harry's a 12, 13, $15 billion man who's like building hundreds and hundreds of apartments every year. And you know what? His values, and he's a stubborn guy, and he's a hard guy, and he's stupidly hard, but he's the same Harry today that I met with John first time. John had known him for 40 years. I met him about 25, 28 years ago. Same guy, and so these guys don't really change their values. They don't go with the wind. They, what they stand for, what they're going to get, even at Aussie, there was always, when someone was in a dispute or someone was in whatever, and then they'd have to go up to me as the CEO. And I know 9 times out of 10, no one wanted to do that. They would go, oh no, really? Oh no, do I have to go? Oh, I know what he's going to say. Well, if you know what he's going to say, and you would have known, before you had a meet, you knew what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If you had people just knew what John and I were going to say. They knew, well, what would James do in this circumstance? What would John say in this circumstance? And that would be the answer, and 9.9 times out of 10, that's what they'd get. So be true to yourself. You said a word before, which was just such a good word. And I think you said a word, and the word was authentic. And authenticity is something that is so, so important. Your team members, your customers, your business partners in life, your wife, your husband, your kids, they want to see authentic dad, authentic mum. They want to see you being true to yourself. Okay, sometimes we all have bad moments, or we all go a bit crazy. Just be authentic about it. Don't be two-faced. No one could have ever said with me, oh, did you get the good James, bad James? You got James, all right? Full stop. All right. And as you're getting now, for good or for bad. Same with John. These 2 guys, John and James, we did a dual act for 30 years nearly. And, we were always authentic. People knew where they stood. We developed very solid friendships, including key competitors who I still speak to today, who I have so much respect for, even though they might have raped and pillaged our sales force, I still have a lot of respect. Good luck to them. That was my doing, that I didn't have the right the right pathways for them to retain them appropriately, like we did, in the last 15 years of Aussie through franchise, senior broker, and mobile mortgage broker. That's changed today, I believe. But we certainly think we got our model right for the last 50% that I was at Aussie in a big way.
You mentioned about competitors, and it's something which one of the biggest things that I promote is you collaborate with your competitors and you compete with each other, not against each other. Not all competitors. Some people you write off because they're not great people.
Listen, it's what, in my experience, Andrew, the majority of competitors aren't really competitors, right? What did your competitor is yourself. It's always good to have one person that you hate their guts. It's always good to have one. And I said this to Mark Burris the other week, and today, the last 12 months, I probably have coffee with Mark once every few weeks down at Darlinghurst, amazingly enough. But, we were into with Mark, yes. We were very hot competitors for a long time. And then we ended up buying Wizard, amalgamating their stores, et cetera, to Mark's detriment. And he handled himself fine. He handled himself well. But he was probably my guy for 20 years. When you say you got someone that you focus on to go, got to hate someone, so to speak. And he's the loveliest guy. He's a good guy, and he's a mate today. And he's a real smart cat. He just does too many things at once. But he was probably that person for me for a while. So it's okay to have one that you sort of that gets you up in the morning. But the majority of competitors you can learn from. They're on the same journey as you are. They've got the same challenges as you are. Work with them. Simple as that.
I think it's something which I want to see more of in our industry is that recognition that the industry as a whole would benefit from having more conversations that are not as isolated as some of the conversations are. It's part of the reason why I started the Online Broker Think Tank, was to generate conversation where people could be open with their thoughts and actually add value to each other, recognizing that if the industry grows and we grow from strength to strength, we all benefit from that. You don't have to hold back, and it's fascinating the people that's attracted are such good people, and then the few people on the outside where you just go, actually, well, I don't care.
Good Andrew, good people attract good people. Full stop. Okay, and from an aggregator perspective or a broker perspective, that's why you've got to look at the teams. Aussie, Mortgage Choice, Loan Market, the AFG, Connective, these aggregation firms. That's why they try to bring people together as much as they can so you can learn off each other. And it's to your detriment if you choose to be the business operator that says, oh, look, I don't want to go to this quarterly business forum. I don't want to go to this sales meeting. There's nothing in it for me. You can always find something. There's always a pearl there somewhere. Speaking to the lenders and the lender workshops they have, speaking to brokers in any of these, in any of these firms. So I think that it's to your detriment if you don't leverage and take advantage of the situation of the aggregation firms and the teams and bringing people together and learning off each other, because being a mortgage broker it's hard, bloody stuff. Goalposts move all the time. You're not selling a basketball. The product is very complicated. You've got all the stress of a consumer saying, "Will you get the loan approved? I need this house, and if you don't, it falls over, and my family life, goes to shit." It can be a very lonely life, right?
Yes.
You're going to appointment to appointment. I remember when I was a mortgage broker for a couple of years and I was out in Campbelltown, Penrith. John just sent me out to the western suburbs and got me bashed. And best thing he ever did, even though at the time I was challenged. And I used to go to 3 or 4 appointments in one night, get home at midnight, and sometimes I didn't get a single loan in one night. Commission only, thinking to yourself, what in the hell am I doing? Having your parents, having your partner say, well, you might need to get a real job. So there are a lot of dark moments in being a mortgage broker, and having the support and the confidence of teams around you and people around you, surrounding yourself, as we've said, with the best people you can, is really important, really important. So it's something that, is a key takeaway from this conversation.
Absolutely. I think the highlight for me at Aussie is probably the biggest learning I did is when I went to look after Aussie over in South Australia. And at the time, the culture wasn't that great. That had a bit of a bad run. And we've had a conversation previously about some of the people involved in that previously. And the culture was sick. And I remember I wrote all of the vision I had for the business, all my plans. I put on a whiteboard with post-it notes, like one of those agile boards, smack bang right in the middle of the office so every single broker could see it. And it was just that complete, this is what I see, this is what I'm trying to build. And it's only a matter of time before brokers started walking in, looking at the board, pulling off a post-it note and walking up to me going, I think I could do this. And it taught me this lesson that sometimes if you try to do it all yourself and you're not willing to actually reach out to others and show a little bit of vulnerability and accept some help and support from people, you can't achieve what you need to achieve.
Andrew, you were successful in doing that because you're also authentic. And the previous leadership that was there was not authentic. We won't go into that, but that's why it was sick. Sick themselves, right? And the only way that you knew and the only way that I know how to lead is to be myself, is to show people what I'm about, is to talk them through that, and then to act. The scoreboard doesn't lie. And I think that's the way that you got through that successfully, because people saw you as an authentic leader. Took some time to get the trust, all right? But they saw it and they appreciated that, and the results ultimately follow.
What's the message that you really want to give to our industry at the moment? Look, and I've got so much respect for what you've built, and I tell anybody that if you want advice, you go to somebody who's been there, done it, and done well. And also tell them that, like, if you want marriage advice from someone who's really good at business, make sure they've got a good marriage first. I personally think yourself and John and what you've contributed to our industry and you've built this really has set the platform that many of us are building off right now. But you're still around, you're still active, you're still doing things. I'd love to to get some insight into, I guess, where you're at right now. What do you see the future looking like, and how can we all contribute to the future of the industry?
I mean, it's a big question, wide question, good question. Aussie was merged with a software business, Lendy, and I wish them the very best. I think that it comes with its own challenges that they're going through at the moment, and I hope they get through them. But that's up to them. We handed over an exemplary first-class business that was extraordinarily profitable, that had a household trusted brand name and a culture that was extraordinary. So we did our job. In terms of last 18 months, I've had some of my own health challenges, to be very honest, that I've come on top of, and I just needed a break. And there's also a non-compete piece there as well. I'm now off my leash, and 2023 I'm looking at some very serious opportunities. I'm 50, I'm not 500, and we talked about retirement, and I'm not ready to retire. Still got a lot to give, and so I think that during the year, probably sooner than later, you'll probably see my smiling face around. Let's just see how it goes, what happens there. I think the industry at all times, change is the one constant. We've always spoken about that, so you need to be wary of that. The market has changed now, full stop, in the last 12 months. There'll be more mergers and acquisitions as people will sort of give up and their businesses become less profitable, and you'll see aggregators again. You'll see some more mergers out there. The business is going to have a rough trot for probably 18 to 24 months. And brokers need to get ready to be disciplined and to give it all they got and to do things differently. Having partnerships and having to surround yourself with quality people, as we've said, is really, really important. It's still a business that will remain very, very financially positive. This is a business, mortgage broking is one in which you do the right things by the consumers, you build your business right, and you keep your nose clean from a risk perspective, and you can make a lot of money. You can change your trajectory. Your family holidays in St. Tropez rather than the local rather Newcastle, so to speak. Not dissing Newcastle, please. So I think that be ready to change and change often. I think be ready to knuckle down even harder. I think that 12 and 24 months ago, it was a bit more of an easy street, same with real estate agents. The number of real estate agents who are exiting in the industry is extraordinary. All of a sudden, it's not as easy as it was. The volume of business isn't there as it was. Mortgage broking is different. The volume of business is still there from a refi point of view. From a purchase point of view, it's down, but a refinance point of view, it's up. And then people will say, yeah, but you can't do much with the refinance cut. You can. You can. You need to learn how. You need to be with people and be taught how, especially as people come. And apparently there's like 50 or 60% of the mortgage population over the next 3 months coming off a fixed rate. Imagine how many people there want advice. You got to be able to give them advice. You got to be able to steer them in the right way, and if you don't, someone else will. So be careful. So I think that the days of the easy street are probably behind us for a bit for the moment, yet the business remains absolutely awesome. The industry remains absolutely fruitful. You're going to see probably less competitors out there within the industry. That's a good thing. Tough luck. Bye. And hopefully if the industry gets it right, you'll see more newbies coming over the next 12 and 18 months as well. So it still remains an exciting industry to be in, and I wouldn't want to be in any other industry. I've had my 30 years and done everything, including being the president of the MFAA, being on the board, won the awards, all that shit, which is wonderful, which is great. But for me, I look at it saying the first 30 years is just the beginning. Okay. And I look at it going, there's plenty of gas in the tank, plenty of knowledge, and there's plenty of opportunity to do well. So, and I think you've just got to have that sort of mindset.
Thank you so much. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat with you and spend some time with you again.
It's been my pleasure.
It's exciting. It's exciting. I miss your face around the industry. I miss your wisdom. This is hopeful, wishful thinking on my part. Like that, maybe some healthy competition out there would be great. And no, look, I think so much of what you've given today is being authentic, which is what you've always claimed to be. And it's what I've always witnessed. And for good, for bad, every conversation I've had with you, as you said earlier, I knew exactly what you're going to say before you said it, because you've remained consistent. So look, really appreciate just be willing to actually have this conversation.
It's been
good,
Andrew. It's been my pleasure, and the people that are listening, if I've given any pearls, if you've got one idea or one thought in the last 60 odd minutes that you didn't have before that maybe I've helped with you, good, great. Take it, run with it, implement it. It's all about implementing it, right? You can think about it all you want. It's the discipline of doing, as we've discussed. So, Andrew, thank you very much. I'll speak to you very, very soon. You keep going on the track you're going. You're providing great value to yourself, your family, but just as importantly to the industry, so you're doing your thing and you're doing it really well. So well done. And I'll speak to you very, very soon.
Thank you again to James Symond for joining us on the table and sharing such great insights into our industry and what it's like to own a business. I hope that you, as a listener today, was able to get some insights and some strategies that you can also apply into your business to help you grow. We will have many more guests joining us on the table, so stay tuned. And once again, thank you so much for being a part of the Online Broker Think Tank community. Take care.